Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Elevated Frequency Podcast. My name is Lisa Kirby, co-founder of The Green Door Life. I'm here with my beautiful business wife, Shannon Morse, and we're so excited to welcome our amazing guest today, Roudy Nassif. He is the founder and CEO of Viva and a quantum biologist, and we're going to talk about all things today, light. Artificial light, natural light, and really the impact that it has on the human body that I feel like is just now kind of coming to the surface and being talked about more all across the board and, different health and wellness spaces. So it's really cool to have this like integrative conversation. And we're just so excited to have you. So Roudy, can you share a little bit more about yourself and kind of what led you down the path of founding Viva and where you are right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure. And for me, it was a very unpredictable thing. Like I've never thought about starting a business or wanted to like study light or any of that. I literally came to this topic because of profound suffering, deep depression, and chronic fatigue. And literally, like if I trace it back, it goes way back to when I was a little kid at school. I was 40 years old and I struggled with headaches, agitation, and inability to focus. And from that very young age, I was intuitively pulled to always try to leave the classroom. I wanted to be outside in the sunshine, and to me, like I noticed I could feel a lot more inspired and learn a lot more about myself and the nature around me by being outside. So my teachers were not acceptant of this, so they labeled me with ADHD, and they forced me back into the classroom, and it literally felt like a prison cell to me. I was suffocating. So I had to find a strategy to break from that prison, and my strategy was troublemaking.
I love it.
I was actually asked to leave 7 different schools, so it was a very rocky start. Like for me and for my parents, it was very intense. And throughout the years, I slowly start disconnecting from myself. And I start slowly viewing myself through the lens of my teacher, the ADHD kid that can't focus. And somehow, after my school.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
That's so good.
All right. We'll have to wait for the Wi-Fi to come back on.
This is Roudy's in Mexico, so this is
the cliffhanger.
Yeah, exactly. This is real time Mercury in retrograde doing its thing too.
Well, as he was sharing that, I was just thinking more fully as we're going to fill airtime, I guess you could say, that I was thinking about how many people have been in that situation where they were told that it was ADHD or that there was something wrong with them or that they were crazy for whatever it was, for just experiencing and responding to the natural stimulus of what their body was asking for.
Oh my gosh.
And it happens in so many ways, whether it's us listening to our intuition or the signals of our body, where as we're raised, we just don't have the support or the environment that reflects back to, no, you're just actually listening to the reality of what your body's experiencing.
It's absolutely. Your body responding to the environment that it's in. Like your body, I truly believe the body it always is working for us for our highest good.
Yes.
The body is not attacking itself or doing anything that's out of alignment. It's literally trying to help us survive and keep us alive. So it's really responding to this very artificial, unnatural environment that we've created. So it's when you think about it through that lens, it really does change the perspective. I think what's wild is that's where kind of like this conditioning comes in, and like social conditioning, where when you're brought up through, a certain way, that's all you know. And you don't really, if you don't think to ask questions or look at things differently, what I think about is like the criteria for ADHD and some of these things from, 50 years ago, whenever they were designed. It's like, that was before iPhones were invented. Like, how can, like, whenever I see these ADHD videos and reels on Instagram, I'm like, I feel like that's all of us, and not to downplay like the true diagnosis, but we are all, like, our attention span for everybody has probably like changed drastically since this new technology has come in.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're just rewiring our brains in different ways to have a different level or time frame of stimulus. If it doesn't get stimulus every so many seconds, it wants stimulus again.
Right. Yes. I think my favorite example, I'm trying to send him the link. I think his Wi-Fi's out. My favorite example, my youngest son, Paul, just the other day, we have like very structured screen time and electronic time. And he was watching his favorite show, and it goes right into the next show. Like, there's no break. And he's like, Mom, and we have a talk like, okay, after this show's done, and then we turn it off, and then we go outside and we're going to move our bodies and get fresh air. And he's like, Mom, I don't even do anything. It just goes into the next show, like autoplay. And we were talking about, I'm like, it's harder to turn it off. Like there's more effort required to like self-regulate, where it used to be like, when you and I were growing up, we would like watch something on TV. It was like a 1.5 hour movie probably took 2 hours because of commercials. Then you were like, you could take breaks.
Totally. Yeah.
Now it's like you could sit interrupted, and it's just you're being fed that stimulus constantly. So it's just a different world.
It's so true. Yep. We're experiencing a completely different way of self-regulation.
Yes, absolutely. And then you think about like how many different areas are you having to like exert effort to self-regulate. That's where, a huge part of what we do is like, how do you set up your environment so that you don't have to exert all that effort? Like, how do you structure your environment so that you don't require all this extra motivation and self-regulation, where it's like, oh, this is just how my environment is,
Absolutely. Yeah. So do you think we're getting him back?
I don't know. I think he might be out. I haven't gotten a response yet. Let's see here. I'm just checking. Oh, his laptop shut down, but he's restarting.
Okay. Well, this is exciting.
We'll be waiting.
We might just do a little post edit for this part.
Shannon and I will do a song and dance for the next 5 minutes.
That's right, in post-production. For those of you who,
I was going to say, Shannon, do you want to talk about just what we were talking about before, kind of this connection of different ways, like when we're talking about light and life force energy, just kind of like, tell us about what you've been studying and why this is like piquing our interest, kind of this cross section right now, for us and our community.
So right before I was having this, I'm currently going through a certification for Tantra Kriya Yoga. And right now we're going through pranayama, which is essentially the control of life force. That's all it is. That's what it means. It's basically the holding and the releasing or allowing of life force. And we do that through breath. And prana is essentially our vital life force. And prana comes from the sun. Huh. So we were giggling before we went live, and we were having this discussion with Roudy. And my question to him was, would you say that prana and light are interchangeable in your mind when you think about them? And so he was sharing that. And when we're going through this conversation right now, we're helping individuals with all of these strategies of nutrition and training and sleep cycles and understanding their hormones. And Elise, you and I have had some interesting conversations as you've been developing this deeper understanding of the science of light. And I think what's been so funny, and this is just your and my personality, is that all of these things I've been doing intuitively. it's like, I just move to do that. I move to take walks. I move to sit outside as much as I can. Like, I move to like see the sunrise. I move to see the sunset, like all of those things. And there's been now this really beautiful science that's coming out around it, how light is further integrated and can be understood by us in more than just a spiritual realm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, yeah, please.
Yeah, I think I think what's new and what's different and why it's being studied is because we now have this artificial environment. So it's like things that are now a thing and now an issue, and why it's being brought to the surface is because we're not like the majority of humans, living a modern lifestyle are not getting outside. So now we're really seeing the studies and research that's coming around it, at least at first, is around what is the negative impact of not getting that, of not getting movement, of not getting fresh air, of not getting natural light. Another huge part of this that I would love to pick Roudy's brain about is kind of this shift. I know for me growing up in the 1980s, and you too, Shan, do you remember that poster? It was the quintessential like 1980s, 1990s poster with this super tan woman laying outside on the beach. And she was like all oiled up, and it was like from a sunscreen company talking about how evil the sun is and it's going to kill you and give you skin cancer. And I remember that poster, it was right around the time with like, DARE, like don't do drugs, say no to drugs, like all is just very intense, like negative, no energy. And I remember ever since being a kid, I've always been drawn to the sun, always been drawn outside, always felt good, always like on a bright sunny day. Like how could you, it just feels so innate, right? And so I remember growing up, especially in adolescent years, in my early 20s, being like having this inner conflict of like, but is the sun bad for us? Like, how can this thing that feels so good, like, how can it be bad? And that's also what's being brought to the surface. And I think one of the most incredible things that I've learned through this process with like light and quantum biology is that just seeing sunrise and seeing light in sequential order, even if you're inside your house, you just pop open your window. It doesn't have to be a big thing, you guys. Just seeing light in sequential order, you will precondition your skin to not burn later in the day, because light is giving you that circadian rhythm setting. It's giving your body like code, essentially information of this is where Lisa is living at this latitude. It's this time of year. And it will tell your body, hey, produce this much melanin, 4 hours later when it's solar noon. And it's like, of course it does. Of course it does. The body is so genius. Like it's perfect. Of course it does that. And what happens when we miss sunrise and we're indoors all day, and then we come outside and we're wearing sunglasses, and now we're blocking this code and we're not producing melanin because right here we're telling our eyes and our body like, the signal's not registering through here, but the light receptors on our skin are getting different information. So we're not going to produce that much melanin. Then you burn.
And that makes so much sense, like as you're sharing that aspect. And by the way, I listened to that whole lesson from Sarah Kleiner this morning, so this is perfect. But as I'm thinking about it, because I'm looking at like how we've evolved into our skin and receiving light and things like that. And I'm thinking back, okay, when we didn't have the kind of shelter that we do, then we would have been outside rather early in the morning. We would have just been exposed to those factors. Obviously we would have been exposed to a lot of factors, but we wouldn't have been met with shade in the same way. And so we would have been able to further like build up that solar callus that you're talking about as just a natural byproduct of waking up in the morning, being exposed to sun, being exposed to sunlight, and then that naturally building over the course of the day. And just that is so simple and really fascinating. And then now it's kind of us, we have the opportunity to look at what our current environment is and then how to use the tools and the knowledge base that we have now to work to the best of our ability to balance it out with the little things that we can do throughout the day, so that we're not like, oh, we have to live outside if we choose to live inside, because there's pros and cons.
Yes.
But to understand what the options are, I think is the most empowering and liberating thing. And
yeah, it's like with anything. Okay, he says his computer says 7 more minutes.
Oh,
I think we could probably squeeze it in.
I think we should also have like this is like a baby intro.
Yeah, it could be.
I think this might be our baby intro. And then we can have a full intro on a part 2.
Yeah, let's see. We'll see what he says. Yeah, Shan, everyone who knows of the Green Door Life and kind of our style, we're really about, it's like taking this information and not only applying it to what feels good to you intuitively, but also like how to make it manageable, right? So there's some extreme theories and philosophies and practitioners who are like, this is the way and it must be this extreme, and quit your job and move to the equator, and you need to live on 20 acres and never look at a computer again. It's like, well, there's some really great benefits of having a laptop and personal freedom, and you can work from anywhere, and different ways of supporting sustaining yourself financially. So I appreciate our perspective of like, okay, how do you take this information and actually make it adaptable and apply it to like a modern lifestyle if you do have a desk job and you're not getting out of it anytime soon.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I think about you and I and our schedule, like we're on the laptop computer a lot. So it almost like, okay, he's going to try and get on in the next 5. It's almost like, it's like, what are the bare minimum, like basic things that we can do? And one of them is just, even if you have 30 seconds, a minute, right before this call, is like, I literally have 2 minutes in between the things.
Yep.
Have something to eat. I go for a walk down to the mailbox and back. And like, what if that was enough?
Yeah.
I'm receiving that light information. It's telling my body what time of day it is. It feels great. You're checking off all these boxes. I think where we get stuck is like, I need to be doing this thing perfectly and to the extreme. And then we feel defeated and we're not going to do it.
Right. Because we've all been conditioned to take a test and do it right.
Yes.
Yeah. Instead of listening and going like, what does it feel like? What feels good right now? Yeah. Like I think I actually got plants so that I could be outside more watering them.
I love that. Yes. See, it's like restructuring your environment or thinking about your environment a little differently.
Yes.
So that becomes easy. It's like, you're not going outside because you have to. You're going outside because you want to play with your plants and make them grow.
Yes. And even from that perspective, I am learning so much because I'm choosing not to look it up. I'm choosing not to look up how to take care of my plants. I'm choosing to look at my plants and go, if I were you, what would I need right now? Based on how they are performing.
I love this so much because we could go into a little human design tangent, because that is like such the experimenter, whereas I would do the opposite. I almost joined this like homesteading, basically how to grow your own food program last year or the year before. I was like, I don't know anything about plants. I can't even keep like I can't even keep a succulent alive. And I have these grand visions of like a 40-acre homestead. And yeah, I'm like, Chanley, my husband is like, maybe we should start with a plant before, like maybe we should start there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. What I've learned so far.
Yeah.
Is that different plants require a different amount of light. Step 1. Step 2, based on the amount of light, they will require a different amount of water.
Yeah.
The soil matters quite a lot.
Yes.
If there isn't enough nutrients in the soil, like I'm finding little worms and then I'm popping them in my soil.
Oh.
I'm like, hey buddy, come with me. We're going to put you over here.
I love this.
It's really, those are the three things I figured out so far.
It sounds not too far off from like everything else, like what the unique variance in humans of like some people need more of this and less of that. Like it's
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's for those of you listening, I hope you're finding this interesting, but we're also like pausing time.
We're filling time.
Yeah, we're filling time. But what's also been quite interesting is that we got a few different plants at the same time. They're all kind of planted in the same area. Some of them have like thicker stalks. Some of them are more delicate, but they all said on their little tag the same amount of light. Not respond in the same way.
Oh, interesting.
Some of them need a lot more water than others. And I'm looking at them going like, why are you doing so well over here, my friend? And you look like someone ate your cat. So
totally. Yeah, it's that variance. Well, on that note, Shan, maybe as like a segue, if Roudy's able to hop on, because the biggest thing I wanted to get his real-time input on is what is the impact of light on women's hormones in particular. But before like backing up to that, because we've been talking about this for a while, you and I, it's coming up more recently in our community.
Yep.
We're of the age, we're in our 40s now. And like, what do you feel, from your perspective of like feedback you've heard from clients, potential clients in this kind of perimenopause, menopause, demographic? What do you feel like are the biggest things that you've heard and, in terms of what they're struggling with, just so we can, see, for those who maybe aren't in our program, like, oh yeah, that's me. I'm struggling with that too. Like, what are the biggest things you're hearing?
I feel like it's really across the board, but again, I also feel like we're experiencing it more with certain archetypes. I feel like the archetype that is coming in with most of the concerns around hormonal changes in menopause are individuals who work inside the majority of the time, who have mostly seated jobs, maybe high stress jobs, and that have part of their personality that they follow everything to a T, right? We were talking about this last time. So we have the following to a T people, or the people who are like listless, like the kite, and that grounding force. So, for those of you who are listening, there's like perimenopause and menopause is such a massive word right now. And Lisa and I have been talking about this quite a lot, and we hear everyone, and we want to know that we have something coming for all of you. But as we do anything, we're going to make sure that it is delivered in a way that is tangible. But in terms of what we're seeing individuals struggling with their body responding in the same way that they would expect it to. I want to say that because it's not in the way that it necessarily should or is meant to at this point in their life, but there's this expectation and comparison that it responded to a certain type of stimulus when I was this age. Why isn't it doing it anymore? There must be something wrong. Instead of kind of looking at it, well, your body's environment internally is literally shifting. Therefore, you're going to need to shift the stimulus that you're giving it so that it can now have a different kind of support for the new internal environment. And I feel like so many women are getting a little bit, I think the main thing that's happening that I'm noticing is that people are like freaking out a little bit, a lot of it.
Yeah.
And they're kind of coming at it, well, I must need to do this big arching change. It's got to be some sort of massive thing that I have to undergo in order to feel better. And Lisa, you and I have talked about that, and I'm not sure if I believe that.
I don't.
Yeah. What do you believe?
I think it's so simple because all of the, like I've shared before, like I've been studying hormones and specifically like perimenopause and menopause for like since I was 30. And it's so funny because everything that, if you go down that rabbit hole, like everything I've been reading and researching and studying and getting certified in and blah, 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 the solution is the same. The foundation is the same. And I have this I have this social media slide that you'll see soon in my head where it's like, strategies for weight loss, it's this. Strategies for muscle building, it's this. And in each area, it's like 1 to 2 small tweaks.
Yep.
Strategies for balancing your hormones, it's this. Are you in perimenopause? Here's what you need to do. And it's the same foundation. It's the same foundation. You need to check what you're eating, balance your blood sugar, get enough protein, make sure you're doing some sort of like load bearing resistance training. And, here and there, it's, yes, there's small things and like levers we can tweak, but you're doing that anyway in any one of those goals, in any one of those situations. You're going to be pulling certain levers, right? But the foundation is the same. You need sleep. You need stress management. What I find the biggest piece for perimenopause and anyone with hormone imbalance is you can't half-ass it at that point. You're like it has to become, these have to become steady habits, consistent habits in your life. Yes. You're not going to be able to have as much alcohol as you were before and still be fit and feel good, right? You can't do that anymore. You can't get away with 4 to 6 hours of sleep. You cannot. In your 40s, good luck.
Yeah.
And even the same amount of stress. And do you want to share a little bit more, just, conversationally about what you've been exploring with the CGM and stress and feedback?
So good. Yeah. So I was wearing a CGM for 12, 13 days. Usually they last around that length. And I was playing around with carb cycling, just kind of noticing what my blood sugar was doing, because I love to test it out. And it's such a great tool for that way. But what I was testing out first and foremost was carb cycling. And then as I was kind of refining the meals that worked best for me, I was noticing the blood sugar regulation that was possible. I was also noticing that my blood sugar didn't spike as much when I was doing strength training, which I wasn't necessarily sure if I liked, which was interesting because I actually physically didn't feel like I had as much energy. And so that was a really interesting thing. So I'm going to continue to play around with that in May. Nice. But what I noticed is that I had one of those conversations with a family member where my heart was racing, where there were emotions coming up. It was like a really big kind of, it didn't involve just one family member. It involved like 7. And it was just one of those things. And I looked at my blood sugar levels and it went up to 175 right when I was having the exact same breakfast that I had been refining to bring me to like 110.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
That's a thing. And it was the first time that I had that kind of visual feedback. I mean, what I think is so cool about that is that I think we all know what that kind of stress, that emotional stress feels like in our body. But to be able to have that immediate reflection was like, wow. And then what was fascinating is I had 2 additional conversations on the phone. The same thing happened, and it took me longer to recover each time.
Wow.
So that was really fascinating as well. It was almost like the cortisol release had gotten to a certain level. I had had this massive spike, and then the subsequent conversations, I had a smaller capacity to combat the stress.
Wow.
Because I was already in a heightened stress state.
Yeah.
And so overall, it took me about 3 days to fully recover. And that, I think, was just such an incredible representation for me, and why we implement things like deload weeks, why we implement things like meditation, why breath work can be so incredibly important. And I really hope that Roudy joins, because this is one of the things when learning about prana is that we can use breath to control that parasympathetic nervous system and the fight or flight response. But it's also, from what I'm understanding, helping to control how light circulates through our body.
Yes.
And how freaking rad is that we're having this conversation? It's just
from 2 different angles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
It's all connected, right? It really is. And that's what I love is we're starting to see that more and more, is this more like holistic approach of like when you try and isolate one thing and look at health through this very small lens of, I'm just going to work out. And that's great. If that's where you need to start in kind of one area, like do that. That's fantastic. But it is, if you've been in the game for a while and you've been training for a while and you're trying to figure out your food and all the things right, but you're still experiencing, a plateau or challenges, or you just don't feel great. There's so many other things to look at in this more holistic view of lifestyle. And light is one of the biggest things that we're really kind of geeking out on. And it makes sense to me, Shan, because you and I are always students. We are forever students, and we're always studying. And again, this really kind of came up when, some of our clients were hitting that age and things weren't working as quickly. Or maybe they needed a different approach. And that's where we get to, like, that excites me in a weird way. Because I'm like, ooh, like what else is there that we have? Like, what stone have we not uncovered?
Oh yeah.
Whether that's from stress management or like just asking basic questions like, well, what time do you go to bed? 2 a.m. every night. Okay. Well, that could be a thing.
Yep, absolutely. And so what have you, like with your own personal journey, when you started learning about the science of what you're learning about with light right now, or what you've already learned, what did you start to notice in your own experience that started to shift as you started to make some adjustments?
Okay. Thank you for asking this, because I've been trying to boil it down again. Like, what is the lowest hanging fruit? Like, what's the least required effort to get this max response? For me, it was committing to seeing the sunrise. And I'm not perfect. I'm not always able to get out right at sunrise, but most days I am. And I was able to do that for almost every single day for a year.
Wow.
The biggest factor for me was sunrise light. And again, some days I have a lot of things on my plate in the morning as a mom and business owner. And now I'm teaching classes where like all I can do is just open the windows and let the light in. And when I say light, it doesn't have to be sunny. It's any kind of light, even when there's clouds. Hopefully everyone knows the sun comes through. Yeah. But committing to getting on that schedule, that circadian schedule, seeing the sunrise. And again, be skeptical. I was like, this is dumb. I mean, it was like very beautiful to watch the sunrise. Yeah. I was like, this can't have an impact on me. Oh, y'all. Yes, it can. And the biggest thing that I noticed that it shifted was I could not keep my eyes open like past 9 p.m. I was just passing out. And this is coming from, like, I've struggled with sleep since I was a little girl, ever since I can remember. I would get in bed and lay in bed and just have all these thoughts. My brain was just so overactive. I've always struggled with sleep. And, in looking back now, I could coin it as like maybe like anxious thoughts, but I think some of it too is like just excitedness. I've always like loved life, and I would get in bed and I'm just like, I can't wait to go to school tomorrow. And like, I would like play scenes in my head of like walking up into my classroom, and I don't know, total nerd, right? So that was the biggest shift for me, right? So then I started, really like passing out at like 9:30, which was so vastly different. I was getting 8 hours of sleep regularly before that, but I wasn't falling asleep till like 11:30. Just that shift of like passing out late to falling asleep early, there's a special window of time. And this is what I've learned, through the science, where like I'm not going to get way too deep into it, but certain hormones need to travel to certain places in your body. And if you miss that window, you're going to wake up with higher blood sugar. You're going to wake up and there's going to be a mismatch of miscommunication in your body, where your body doesn't know, it doesn't have the information it needs. So when you get in bed and you prioritize sleep and you're producing melatonin on your own, think of it as it's a language to your body. Your hormones are those messengers. They're telling your body, this is what's up. This is how much body fat you have. This is how many calories you can burn today. We got some extra junk in the trunk. Like, I'm going to give you extra energy. But when we interfere with those signals, and one of the interference signals is artificial light, right? When we interfere with those signals, it's not that being healthy is impossible. It just makes it harder.
Yeah.
So I was struggling with like stress, anxiety, like just an appetite out of control that it just didn't make sense to me in my mind. Like, just hungry all the time, never satisfied. And then just getting on this flow of circadian rhythm and trying to be in sync with the sun and little light breaks, I call them now, just changed everything. It's wild.
And I have a couple of questions. So one, because I remember these times where you would be telling me that you were working like almost through the night.
Yes.
Like, you'd be on your computer, because I want people to understand the drastic shift that you went through, right? Because you would sometimes be working on the computer until like 2, 3 in the morning.
Yep.
And I was always like, wow, I don't know how she does that, because I would be out at like 10 and I just couldn't.
Yeah, it was bad. And and a lot of the times, I mean, that's part of where like the challenge in like owning a business, and then also like attending to my kids, where I have this like sacred special time with them where like I can't work through that, like I can't work through dinner. I would prefer, on some days that required more computer time, like I would love to knock that out, from like 5 to 8 p.m. But as parents know, that's really kind of a sacred time with the family. So I try to keep that open. And the reality was, most of those situations, it was like things needed to be done wherever we were at in our business, or, deadlines and things like that. It makes sense now to me, because I was like, oh, the blue light is automatically, it's going to keep you awake.
Right.
So it's stimulating, in that sense. If you have a night shift and you're like, I need to be awake, like that will keep you up.
Right.
So, I mean, we've all done it. We've all binge watched a show till 3 a.m. Like, it keeps it makes sense. When you think of the sun's max energy and max light in the middle of the day, that's when blue light's the highest. So that's literally what our devices are mimicking. So it's telling your body, it's 12 p.m. solar noon at the sunniest day of the entire year. And it's like, of course you can, for me, I could stay awake, but then I could never fall asleep and I felt terrible,
Yeah. Makes sense.
But
and then when you say, so for those that are listening, when you say sunrise, are you literally looking at the sun from when it's like rising above the horizon? Or are you looking at like a certain percentage up, or like what's the window when you say sunrise?
Yeah, I try to, if you haven't done already, you guys check out the Circadian Life app. I think if you just search Circadian app on your app store, it's so cool. It's free, and it will tell you the exact time of sunrise, UVA light, UVB, and sunset wherever you are, if you're traveling. So that's also really cool. So you can avoid like jet lag. So I just let that, and you can kind of watch it change through the months and seasons, which is really fun.
Yeah.
You just feel very in sync with nature. So I'll check the sunrise time the night before, and my body's on a clock now. I don't even use an alarm. It's just instant. I'm waking up about 30 minutes before, but you can see it's just such a beautiful experience, because you can start to see the sun like slowly come up, almost like it's pre-sunrise. And I've got the windows open, and then if I can time it right, I time it with a walk, like literally right at sunrise.
Yeah.
And the light is so different. Then it's a lot of red light. It's the cheapest red light panel you can get. It's free if you can make it work. Again, pop open a window. If you're driving, roll your windows down. No big deal. Like, doesn't have to be anything big. And by the time I'm done with my walk, the sun is already like getting closer to UVA rise, which it's about an hour after sunrise when that's really the time your body's getting information, like code, if you will, of what to produce for like sex hormones. It's a thing. And I'm so stoked because I'm starting to see more and more like hormone health coaches and practitioners like talk about the importance of light. So it's on your hormones, which is, I mean, it's wild to think about, because it wouldn't be the first place I would go and thinking about, oh, what are the biggest things that impact your hormones? I think people are catching on now, like, oh, you know, there's things like maybe toxins in the environment, or estrogen mimicking molecules in our foods and products and things like that. Like, I feel like we understand that.
Yeah.
The light part is new.
Yeah. It's bringing it back to spirituality.
Yeah.
And things like meditation. That's like the at least when working with my teacher in India, that is the recommended time to meditate.
Is sunrise? Oh, I love it.
And right before sunrise, actually. And to do a little bit of like that sun gazing right at that point in time. So I think that that's what's really kind of fascinating to me, is that what feels like it's kind of being taken and brought with different vocabulary that sounds like it's new, where some of the things that I've been learning in this one realm over the last 2 or 3 years, it's saying the same thing, but with a different vocabulary, you know? And I'm finding it so interesting that sometimes we like to make it so complicated as humans, because then like just bringing it back to these plants, you know, like
you're a complicated houseplant.
Yeah. Who would have thought? Light, water, and soil, you know, and the different amounts that would be required at different seasons, and whether you're in the front or the back of the house. And, you know, I think the question that you asked earlier, what am I seeing with individuals who are struggling with menopause? They're looking for a complicated solution.
Thank you. Yes.
It's not complicated.
It's not. It's not.
No.
Hold on. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a complicated solution. It's like, you know, get back to the basics, like really get the basics in, go to sleep on time. Don't stay up till 1 a.m. Have balanced breakfast. Don't skip breakfast and then have all of your food at night and then go to bed late and you're on your computer. It's like these things, you know, just live your life as if you didn't have a computer.
As much as possible.
Yeah, or a phone.
And it's like, I think there's some, I don't know what I'd be curious to see like what the human psychology behind it is, or like why we like to make up these stories that our problems are so special and unique. They're not. Like we were like, oh, I'm in this hormonal state that can't be fixed. And what's so cool about what we do and the various people that we work with of different ages and demographics and everything, like we've seen women in their 60s in menopause see incredible change in their body, building muscle, losing body fat. So it's sometimes I think there's these like marketing buzzwords that pop out, especially nowadays on social media, that make us feel like, oh, my problem is special and it's not solvable, and I need this like special solution over here. And something you'll notice about us, the Green Door Life, like we don't have a niche. When people are like, who's your target audience? It's like the world, everybody. Like there's not one person that we cannot help. And maybe that's to our detriment, because we don't follow anything traditional of like, you need to niche down and only support this subset of people. It's like, why? We have information and education and coaching available to help literally anyone.
Yeah. Yep. It's so true. Yeah. And in that same realm, I mean, we do. And only because I feel like I'm just now jumping on this bandwagon of like, oh, shoot, we have quite a lot of women who are raising their hand going like, I have a complicated problem. I need a complicated solution.
Yeah.
And Lisa and I feel at the moment that we are at the forefront of many of these conversations because of the age that we're at right now. early 40s, and therefore we're generally attracting women who are around the same age or older. And that's the big concern that's happening right now. But it makes sense because that's what our lifestyle is.
Yeah.
And then bringing it back to the chronic stress, because you've said this to me in so many ways. You're just like, it's the stress. And I've been like, yeah, it's the stress. But man, seeing the blood sugar, like hearing it, I mean, also like my mind is probably stubborn sometimes, I need to experience it. I remember my dad had this thing that he would say to me. He was like, this isn't good for you. And I'd be like, I need to learn it. You can't just tell me.
Yeah.
I gotta literally go through the experience and decide for myself, or else I don't know if you're right or not.
Yeah.
I don't know if that could be true for you, not for me. Anyways.
Yeah.
So learning about this aspect with cortisol as it relates to in women who are going through these hormonal changes, and understanding from a very real perspective that as we get older, our ability to manage cortisol will reduce. So if that is the case, and if we are in an environment that is chronically stressful, so we're chronically releasing cortisol, the effect of that on so many different layers is, first of all, cortisol, one of the side effects is muscle catabolism. So when we release cortisol, we're going to be more likely to break down muscle tissue. One of the side effects of chronic cortisol is that it will not be releasing insulin at the same time. So it will spike blood sugar levels, and also simultaneously, in a very smart way, tell the cells like, we're not going to open because we need this blood sugar to be bursting in like a rocket ship through your bloodstream so that you can have immediate energy just in case you need to lift this car real quick. Yes. And so when that's not happening, when you don't have to lift a car,
right? If you're juggling a nasty email you don't like and you're sitting.
Exactly. And it takes you 3 days to regulate from that. And to compound that, you don't know how to eat in a way that will further assist in regulating your blood sugar levels. And you're not getting movement. So you don't have a place to use the excess glucose that's moving through your bloodstream. And then you are consistently compounding that cortisol release, and you're not getting light. Then you have this really actually simplistic reason why these things would be happening. But it just feels confusing, because if you don't know, then you don't know.
Yeah, because you did it in your 30s and you were fine then, but now it's that's the biggest factor, is like the change of like, oh, well, I could handle all this, 5-10 years ago, but I can't now. For me, it was super overnight. Like after turning 40, like really soon after, I was like, whoa, this is getting ridiculous. And we, to be fully honest, we as a family reassessed everything, truly, because I was like, look, there is so much on my plate professionally, personally. Like I can't do it all. I can't anymore. So we looked at little things, and I know not everybody has the resources to even have those conversations. I totally get it. But if you do have the resources and you're open to getting creative, like we looked at and crunched numbers. I'm like, what does it take for us to get a house cleaner once a month? Like, you know what I mean? Like someone to come in and do that deep clean. To me, it's worth it, because it's like, what can I move around and outsource if I want to be a self-employed mother? Like I have all these other things that I can't take off my plate if I want to be in these roles. What is there anything? And then the other big one was Instacart. Not kidding. Hours and hours of time saved. And I just, I really enjoy going to like the farmer's market, but farmers markets are a little different, y'all, in Texas. We were very spoiled in California.
Yes.
True. But, so Instacart is like an easy solution for us, and we've crunched the numbers, and yes, it's more expensive, but to us, the time saved, I'm talking 2 hours of saved time. and I can sit there on my phone while I'm going for a walk and
Mm-hmm.
curate my perfect macro balance, blood sugar friendly grocery list. And I can like sit and look at the ingredients and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in the comfort of whatever else I'm doing.
Yep.
That to me is invaluable. So where do we shift things? I don't buy a ton of clothes. We don't go out a ton. You know, it's like, where are you placing the highest value so that you can bring more balance into your life? So we really rehauled as a family, like what we could implement to bring more balance and structure and take some things off my plate. And it's been a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
It was so necessary. So part of that change that's happening, and you and I, you know, are probably not in the mid or late stages of perimenopause at all. We're
Mm-hmm.
possibly not even at the beginning, but there are changes that come.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I found that, you know, I was starting to experience what felt like this recalibration. So as your body is going through these hormonal changes, which can come as early as 35 for women, your brain has to recalibrate to a different level of these sex hormones like estrogen and progesterone.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're going through that change, just think of it, give yourself that grace. Like it's almost like a second puberty. Like your brain is not going to be able to function the same. And there are so many things you can do to really mitigate having that experience be a negative one. Now I kind of look at it as like, you know, I actually really am enjoying a less stressful life, and I'm really enjoying like these things we've put in place, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So and for you, have you made any changes? I even just think of your shift from the house you were in before and the one you're in now, and just how has your lifestyle changed in just like the last year and a half or so that feels more nourishing now?
Oh man. Well, we're surrounded by more nature, and that was really important. So one of the things that both Rolf and I wanted was to be able to step outside onto the grass,
Yes.
like to be able to step outside onto the earth. And that has been, I think, one of the main focuses for us with a shift, that we both really wanted to move into a larger piece of land, but we're like, we're going to start small.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, you know, we were looking at like 100 acres and we're like, maybe we take a baby step. Maybe we look for one first and then move from there.
Yeah.
And, but I mean, I find that actually more so what's happening in this current space is it's so much more quiet that both Rolf and I have noticed that we have a lot more access to anything emotional that doesn't belong, because there aren't as many distractions.
Wow.
I mean, you literally walk around the neighborhood, there's like not even litter.
Yes.
You know, there's not like a thing out of place. So there's no distraction. Your brain isn't like all over the place unless you are causing it to be, unless it's coming from inside of you, you know? So in that sense, it's really been that aspect. Also, I have a very specific cultivated meditative and mantra practice here, which has been a really big part of just the space in general. And Rafa has developed that as well. So I think those have really been more of the bigger pieces. We always walked outside. We've always been doing Instacart since the inception, because I was like, oh, this is a thing. We're definitely doing that.
This is a hack.
Yes, we definitely, one of my must-haves for here was getting a house cleaner.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because I'm so with you. There's certain things in life where outsourcing is going to save you time and energy. And as you and I have talked about before, money is currency. You know, it's energetic currency. The time factor, it's not to say that I even relate to time as us only having a finite time, but more so like just operating in alignment of what is in this one moment of now. Yeah. And so sometimes what's in alignment is me cleaning.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that whether I have a house cleaner or not.
Right.
You know, but so if it's in alignment, then it's in alignment in the moment of now. But sometimes what if it's not? I'm going to outsource it.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that with this shift in environment, we've had more access to nature, which has been absolutely amazing, just right outside of our door in the terms of actually just stepping on the earth. The second was just it being so much more quiet as an environment in total, which has allowed us to have access to what doesn't belong on the inner plane. But also now we're both sober. So there's even a further access to what doesn't belong on the inner plane, because anything that could have been dampened with the substance of alcohol or pot has now been completely removed. So we're only now dealing with us.
Not you and Rafa on maybe like coming out of a little alcohol the next day or in the moment or whatever, which is a different version. It's a different version of us.
Yeah. Us plus.
Yeah. I like that. Us plus.
Yeah, exactly. So as we're talking about this, should we kind of round it out and then have a round two with?
Yeah, we're going to reschedule with Roudy. His laptop said it was giving him the circle of never ending.
Yes.
The infinity circle. Yeah. So we're going to reschedule.
Well, this is great because this will be our very initial conversation of the light topic.
Yes.
I think as we planned it.
Yeah. It's a teaser.
Yeah. Exactly. And then we'll go into more depth in next time.
Yeah, absolutely. We're just priming everyone for this conversation that it's connected and you should be interested in it. And we hope to see you at the next one.
Yes, we're so excited. Now I feel like I'm on the edge of my seat going like, we were almost there.
I know. We're like, this is the trailer. We totally planned it like this.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for those of you who are sticking with us, joining live for this one, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for joining our wild, spontaneous ride.
That's right. That's right. And we look forward to following up when we are able to have a full conversation with Roudy. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you for joining.
Bye.